Office Day. It had begun in October of 2009, when only one former Illinois governor was in federal custody, soon to be joined by another. "Where do you think you're going?" Matthew stopped, briefcase in hand. It was Maria's voice. She spoke with the precision and tone of a newscaster, instead of someone from Aurora's Mexican East Side. Her tone was assertive and had no hint of an accent. "Mid-Central Transport," said Matthew, without turning around. He felt like a teenager being caught sneaking out after curfew. "A driver has died." "Your inbox is overflowing again," said Maria. "I know," said Matthew. "I'll stay tonight till it's cleared out. But I need to get to Mid-Central and get on top of this. Apparently the death was accidental or health-related, but you know how they are there. Some hand-holding is always necessary. Besides, who works for who around here?" "Do you mean whom?" she said playfully. "I thought we all worked together for our clients." Maria smiled sweetly. She loved the opportunity to quote Matthew to Matthew. At 26, with dark brown eyes and jet black hair, Maria was petite and just too pretty to be annoyed with. She had worked at the Kohler and Pendleton Insurance Agency since she was in high school. Her mother had worked at the agency as a customer service representative, and Maria had begun working part-time after school. She was smart, organized, and had a talent for dealing with difficult clients. She was viewed by many of them as a close friend and confidant, able to sit at her desk and pound out certificates of insurance for trucking clients, enter applications for new commercial accounts, and open and sort the daily deluge of mail, all while listening and sounding sympathetic to a lonely stay-at-home mom. Deftly bringing the conversation to a close when she ran out of work to enter, Maria would thank them for calling and hang up, muttering, "I don't get paid enough for this." She found it therapeutic to tease Matthew. It relieved some of her stress. Now she was chastising him for leaving the office with a pile of work on his desk. "Overflowing," she said again. I know," said Matthew, "but this isn't important, and something doesn't smell right." "Nothing smells right at Mid-Central Transport," said Maria. Peggy Hemphill joined in from her cubicle. "Starting with their drivers." "The owners, too," agreed Maria. "Tony likes to project affluence, but she still has the aroma of Pirates Bay about her. And she's so rude," added Peggy quickly. Matthew put up his hands as if to shield himself from being pummeled and backed up to the wall mockingly. "Very funny," said Maria and Peggy in unison, looked at one another and began to laugh. They were referring to the wife of the trucking company's owner. She had worked as a barmaid at Pirates Bay, a tavern on US 20 in Addison. It was a hangout for truckers and bikers. Tony Mathers had parlayed her surgically improved body and innate cleverness into marriage and half-ownership of a profitable trucking company. Mike Mathers never saw it coming, or if he did, he was too hot on the hunt to avoid being trapped. Now he was handcuffed to a spendthrift shrew who alternated between being a 90-second thrill ride and a colossal pain in the ass. She was attractive in a cheap way. She was clever, but dumb. Matthew didn't want to agree with the two CSRs, even though they were right. "Regardless," he said, "we have a professional responsibility. We can't modify our service based on whether or not we like our clients. Anyway, it's not about them, it's about us." Very inspirational, thought Matthew to himself. That should mollify them. Instead, Maria and Peggy stood staring back at him without expression. They began marching in place, their knees rising and their arms swinging in unison. They saluted Matthew as they marched back to their desks. They had heard this speech before, and they weren't impressed. "Sarcasm, I get it," said Matthew, relieved that the conversation was over and heading for the front door. As he was exiting, he heard Peggy's voice from behind her cubicle partition. "Don't forget your mouthwash," in a sing-song voice. Matthew stopped and winced. He turned, holding an upraised index finger as if to make a point, thought better of it, then waved his hand in resignation. "What's the use?" he muttered. Peggy was referring to a comment Matthew had once made about another troublesome client in an unguarded moment. "Whenever I leave that place, my mouth tastes like ass," he had said. The whole office laughed. Matthew was rarely vulgar, so that, along with the fundamental truth of the statement, made the observation even funnier. Peggy and Maria were at their desks with their heads bowed, pretending to read. Actually, they were watching Matthew cross the parking lot through the office window. Keys, said Maria. Reading glasses, said Peggy. Cell phone, said Janelle, the office accountant, unseen in a side office. She could not even see what was going on, but she was able to guess. As he reached his car, Matthew stopped and did an about-face, and walked quickly back towards the office. As he re-entered, the girls pretended to be busily engaged in work. Keys, he said, as he re-entered the building, heading toward his office. He re-emerged quickly. Do you have your cell phone, reading glasses, and camera? Asked Peggy. Matthew did another about-face. In 2 minutes, he re-emerged from his office with a sheepish grin and said, Thanks. Drive time. Moments later, the unique chirp-chirp could be heard from Matthew's door locks as he stowed his briefcase, jacket, and camera on the passenger seat. Before climbing in, he stood up and looked around and sniffed the air. More like summer than autumn, he thought, although there was an undeniable scent of Midwest October on the breeze. It gusted slightly and caused a handful of leaves to flutter down out of a sugar maple on the parkway. They tumbled to the asphalt, then cartwheeled along with a northerly breeze. A passing truck caused another breeze, and the leaves switched direction as they were drawn into the whirlwind of the truck's wake. Matthew climbed quickly into his black Audi R8. Much better, he said to himself out loud. The 5.2-liter Lamborghini engine roared to life, then quieted to a throaty rumble. Matthew pulled out cautiously onto the side street, and then even more cautiously onto Roosevelt Road. The Kohler Insurance Agency was an institution in Wheaton. It had stood on the same spot since its founding in 1928. Gerald Kohler, the grandfather of Matthew's partner Pete, thought an insurance agency within sight of the county offices and the DuPage County Courthouse would be a good idea. In those days, Wheaton was a sleepy little community, too far out to even be considered a suburb of Chicago. It was best known then for its well-regarded Christian college. Much had changed over the years. Wheaton had become an affluent suburb and a business hub. Gerald Kohler had chosen wisely, and the agency flourished. On this sunny October day, Matthew Pendleton watched as the agency receded into his rearview mirror. He alternatively scanned traffic ahead and his speedometer. The black Audi leapt forward at each green light. With a 525 horsepower Lamborghini V10 engine, it was a challenge to keep it under the speed limit. With little serious crime to combat, the Wheaton police were vigilant for speeders, especially those in high-profile sports cars. Matthew slipped his iPod into the docking station on the console and selected a playlist. With the volume at 1, the 100-watt, 12-speaker Blaupunkt helped Van Morrison explain. Matthew exhaled heavily. Every trip to Mid-Central Transport was a cause for anxiety, and this trip involved a death. At least a 20-minute trip would allow him to relax and enjoy the music. With the entrance to Interstate 355 approaching, he could enjoy the simple fun of accelerating up to highway speed. The Audi hurled up the on-ramp. The engine's torque forced Matthew deeper into his seat. The car seemed to rejoice at the chance to sprint. Matthew eased up and merged into traffic carefully. The morning rush was beginning to thin. Matthew's mind returned to the task at hand. He initiated the voice-activated phone. Call Carla, Mid-Central Transport. Dialing, said the phone. After one ring, she picked up. Mid-Central Transport, this is Carla speaking. Carla, this is Matthew. What can you tell me about the situation there? Mom, I'm sorry, I can't talk right now. It's very hectic here. Can I call you later? I see, said Matthew. Bye, Mom. And she hung up. He knew exactly what had happened. Tony must be in Carla's office. If she knew Matthew's first call was to Carla instead of her, she would be livid. Tony was difficult to deal with on her best days. It was a boring game of pretending that she wasn't a bird brain, even though she was. Matthew preferred to deal with Carla whenever possible. She was smart and knew the business. Carla would have even been more productive if she was given a chance. Tony was defensive and became irritable around anyone she felt inferior to. Since this was just about everybody, she was nearly always in a bad mood. Matthew exited at Biesterfield. The 6-speed gearbox was stiff but shifted flawlessly. With only 9,000 miles on the car, everything was still pretty tight. As he passed Alexian Brothers Health Center, Matthew felt his pulse quicken. Turning onto Arlington Heights Road, Mid-Central's truck yard came into view. The yard was a beehive of activity. There were 3 Elk Grove Village squad cars, 1 Cook County Sheriff's squad, a fire truck, and an ambulance. It looked like a crime scene.